Welcome to Shoulder to Shoulder, the ultimate peer support podcast. In each episode, we celebrate the incredible power of peer support and the way it transforms lives. So whether you're navigating mental health challenges or just curious, you're definitely in the right place. Hi, Byron. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I really appreciate your time today. It's been a long time coming, I know. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
I'm from an Afro-Caribbean background. I'm married with two kids, two wonderful children, both of which keep me on my toes. I married my wife in Dubai, where I met her. I used to work in Dubai for about 10 years. Pretty much my work background history is I've been a recruitment consultant, I've been a growth hacker, I've been responsible for advertising and marketing campaigns across the world. And now I'm using some of those skills to good use. Finally, I'm using some of those skills to good use.
What's a growth hacker?
A growth hacker basically is where you look at data and manipulate data and find out ways at which a company can grow turnover, grow revenue. So basically, it's just like taking a shortcut into achieving great results from a marketing point of view. That's what growth hacker is.
So you've done loads.
Yeah, I've done a fair bit. I've done a fair whack. What it was is anything that came part of my interest, I wanted to learn more. I always had that bug of wanting to learn more and wanting to immerse myself in whatever it is that I was doing. And so I just got that bug to learn and infuse. And if I've got like a bit of a memory for remembering things that people share with me and tell me. Studying, not so much, but memory-wise, if somebody shows me how something's done, then it sticks and it sticks forever. And use that to my advantage, really.
Absolutely. And you always come across to me, Byron, as having such a zest for life. And that is one of the things that I love about you. Do you know what I mean? I always come away after speaking to you feeling uplifted, whatever we've been talking about. So it's great to have this opportunity today. So let's talk about how you first got involved in peer support.
Absolutely by accident. And so before I was involved in peer support, I didn't know what peer support was. I had really quite an archaic view of people who have problems and how they come to solve it. I thought the answer just lies in putting up your big boy pants and getting on with things. Never really. I think it was partly because of my background. Like I said, an Afro-Caribbean background where you're encouraged to share your feelings, but in the comfort of own men and never really share your feelings because it's seen as a sign of weakness to some degree. I'm glad to report that is changing amongst the Black and Afro-Caribbean community as well. But
yeah.
I had a problem. I very much internalized the problem. And it wasn't until I had a stroke about 3 years ago where my life changed. I was in Dubai at the time. Everyone was in lockdown and I had a stroke, and a number of different challenging things happened to me all at once. So I had a stroke from head to toe on the right side of my body, which is I'm right-handed, so go figure. And I was unable to do the simplest tasks for me. And the only person that I felt could understand me was my family, but I had to leave Dubai and come to London to receive more care because it was very expensive in Dubai and there was no type of national health service out there. And coming here, I was like plugged into talking therapies because I ran into some problems, some challenges. I couldn't really piece together everything in my mind, despite the fact I'm a growth hacker and naturally my brain is in tune to kind of learning and progressing through problems and finding the solutions. I couldn't really work out the solution for myself. And that was frustrating to the point of dangerous levels. And it wasn't until I was met by one of the people from Slams, and they spoke to me about kind of sharing my feelings, sharing my thoughts, and being okay with it. It was okay. This was a safe space. No one was going to judge me for how I was feeling, but encouraged me to kind of just share, to tell all, to spill the beans, to express my feelings. That I started to understand a little bit about peer support and what that meant. The person who I'd spoken to from talking therapies as well also seemed to really understand where I was coming from. Not only just sympathize, but empathize with my unique set of challenges. And that really hit home to me. And then somebody from the department said, actually, it might be a good idea, Byron, if you wanted to return to work. So they plugged me into working with the charity that I'm working for now, actually, strangely enough. And I started to work with Status to try and find a job opportunity. And I went into it with the thought of maybe working is a little bit too soon in my development, in my rehabilitation. I'm not ready, but hey, it doesn't cost me anything. So I might as well just chuck in my CV and see where the cards land, right? And then I got a position working as a peer support worker. And to be honest, I accepted a role as a peer support worker, but I had no idea what a peer supporter was. I'd never met a peer. I'd never spoken with a peer. I'd never shared with a peer. I'd never had a peer share with me. I completely went blind, absolutely blind. And it wasn't until I had the course that I sat with with you that I really started to understand the power of peer support. I was like, it was a eureka moment, right? It was like the light bulb went off in my head, and instantly I was like, okay, well, this makes sense. Of course, it makes sense for someone to have lived in experience, sharing those lived in experiences with me, who is living that experience right now. It's so powerful. And the more and more we got into it and did a deep dive into it, and I did my research, and I found out, this is definitely where I'm supposed to be at.
Wow, what an amazing journey to get to this point.
Absolutely.
So going back to the impact of the stroke, Byron, what challenges were you facing personally, physically, emotionally, mentally after that? And what impact did it have on you and your family and your well-being, basically?
Good question. So, like, strokes are really weird, right? Really weird, because it not only impacts the way your brain works from a cognitive point of view, but also has an impact on your organs, so your heart and perhaps sometimes your kidney and definitely my liver. But it also impacts your physical ability. So the simplest of tasks that you used to think as second nature, you can't suddenly do anymore. You're restricted from doing it. And the type of stroke that I had left me with a ganglia bleed on my brain. And that meant the right side of my body completely was paralyzed. The first couple of months, I was, like I said, I was fortunate to be in Emirates rehab, and they taught me very much how to walk again, how to speak even again, and how to use my muscles, because my muscles were seized. They stopped working. Emirates rehab they're little angels. They really persevered with me in terms of getting me into motion again, because there was times where I was like, well, what's the point? Like, I can't believe this has happened to me. I'm relatively young. What's going on? Fate has dealt me a really, really bad card and a bad deal. But here I am in this hospital bed, and I've got this person telling me, come on, Byron, try a little bit harder. I was like, what are you doing? Leave me alone. Let me follow self-pity for a little while. But they're really very good, and they persevered and helped me to kind of understand what was happening in my body. In terms of me emotionally, with my family, what impact did it have? I would say a lot. hugely, a mammoth amount. My wife and my son and daughter were a little bit isolated because the rest of my family, and I have a large family, were in London and couldn't get to Kyrgyzstan and couldn't get to Dubai because it was lockdown, right? So my wife was ultimately doing things on her own. If she was here on this podcast, she would tell you it was a nightmare for me to have access to the medication that I needed. It was a nightmare for me to think about cognitively how to process what was happening to me in my body. It was a pressure to understand, where was the end game, what was going to happen. It was a nightmare. So the impact on my body was obviously my organs started to deteriorate because they gave me medication to treat my heart. But as soon as they did, then they found out that the bleed started to appear in my brain. And then as soon as they started to give me medication to treat my bleed, my kidneys started failing. And then as soon as they gave me medication to aid my failing kidneys, my liver started to fail as well. So it was a real quagmire of different types of challenges that I had. Coming back here was difficult because the NHS, as great as they are, it took a while for the care and the support to kick in, right? It took about 6 months for me to come off the waiting list and eventually be offered an appointment, which is a lifetime in terms of stroke recovery. 6 months means that potentially you don't walk again.
Everything came down on you, didn't it? You had the physical, and then you had to come back, and then you had the emotional wrench of not only dealing with what had happened to you, but the fact that your family couldn't be with you. And that in itself, they're kind of your main pillars of support, aren't they? And they can't be with you. What do you do?
Absolutely. I lost all my pillars all at once. And plus the fact that, well, not all my pillars, all my main pillars, the pillars that for the past 10 years, it's been me and my wife. And then it was me and my wife and my kids. Through experiences, we were battle hardened, but nothing prepared us for this moment. This moment was like completely unconventional. What do we do here? And then she had a car crash, which, and she didn't tell me, it was quite a serious car crash. The car was written off. And
was that after you left? Was that why you were in the UK?
Yeah, it was whilst I was in the UK. And bless her, she didn't want to tell me because she didn't want it to impact my health. When she told me she was still in hospital, and I was like, well, I want to be there for you, but fully in the knowledge that I couldn't leave London and go to Dubai, help her, because I was in a state where I needed help myself. And that just made me spiral into the depths of despair, really.
So moving on then in terms of peer support, can you share with us your first experience of receiving peer support?
Sure, yeah. So I never really experienced peer support in terms of being someone who met somebody else who had a challenge and had overcome. I'd never really met anyone apart from when, as I said, I started the course with you. And then all of a sudden I met our cohort were massive, and I missed them so much.
Yeah, they're brilliant. They were brilliant, weren't they?
All of a sudden, there was 28 other faces who could all share their experiences. Mm-hmm. And I could realize that, hey, Byron, you're not alone in these feelings. Plus, as well, here's someone who is further along the lines in their recovery, who is someone who is battling their challenges on a daily basis and winning. And this is possible for you as well. This is how it's done. There's something to be said for clinicians, and all respect to clinicians as well. But then there is something very key to what a peer support worker can provide that clinicians aren't able to, and that is having a lived-in experiences. They've been able to walk several miles in our shoes. And so that builds an affinity and a credibility that is natural, warm, heartfelt, and honest. Beforehand, I never knew what a peer support worker is, but joining that group was my introduction. Influential. It's magical. It really is planting the concrete stuff. People who who have come through adversity, come through difficult challenges and survived and have thrived. And hearing these stories is so powerful it's so powerful. I'm lost for words and I'm welling up.
Oh, no, it is. And I remember you saying that first analogy, the plant in the concrete, you know, a tiny little shoot grows through, and then from there it just blossoms, and it just makes the prospect of living and thriving and like properly living possible, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was surreal because, like, I'm from South London, right? So I know what it is to see concrete everywhere, and then when you notice a little plant just creeping through the crack, how much of determination that plant and that nature has to just burst through that little crack within the concrete to show itself, but also to kind of reach out to the sun to say, yeah, here I am, shower me with your sun rays so I can grow stronger. It's so powerful.
You mentioned recovery then. You know, when you were on the training, you were mixing with other people who are in recovery. I'm just sort of thinking about your recovery, and sometimes we use the term rediscovery, don't we? And I'm kind of just thinking, where would you put yourself on that spectrum? Because I guess when you've had such a life-changing experience as you have with your stroke, you're kind of rediscovering ways to do things and think about things that maybe were different before.
Very kindly put it. It's something that it's ongoing, right? It never stops. I realize that whilst I can get a little bit of gain from, say, my walking or my hand movement, it never stops. There's excitement of getting more gain and trying to recapture what once was. But also there is an understanding of perspective that, yeah, life for me is different to how it used to be. And chances are it will never be the same, but it has an opportunity to be better because not only do I have lived in experience, a life experience, but I'm come through it. And now is my opportunity for me to thrive.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. I still am surprised by how I'm able to move my hands. Some days it moves really well. Some days not so well. Some days I have good days. Some days I have bad days. The important thing to remember is that the next day is always a new day.
Yes, I love that. So would you say then your first kind of experience of receiving any kind of peer support was at the With You training? And how did that impact your life moving forward?
Game changer. It was an absolute game changer. Yeah. With You was the first time I really had an exposure to peer support, despite the fact being a peer support worker. And
I'm like, sorry.
The irony of that is immense, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. A bit of it, I'll tell you why. It's because the organization I work for is very much a case of somebody is not job ready. A person is never job ready. And certainly somebody who's overcoming mental health issues or challenges, or somebody who has a physical challenge, they're not expected. Nobody is expected, irrespective of whether they're perfectly well or have challenges. Nobody's expected to start a new job and be able to hit the ground running straight away. Everybody will learn from their environment, from the people around them, and that will make them a better support worker. That will make them a better peer. So the challenge was that I accepted a role, and my boss was very much like, yeah, nobody can show you how to be a peer, but I can show you how to be a good employment advisor. So I will bolt on the things that you need to learn to be an effective support worker, but you could bolt on to me how to be an effective peer. And I was like, okay, cool. All right, that's fine. But what does it mean to be a peer, and how do I do that? And I had an open and frank conversation. He was like, okay, we'll get you under With You training. Everything will be clear. And I was like, okay, cool. I remember the first day of the With You training, I was like, Okay, right. So I work 3 days a week. This is one day out of the 3 days. How am I going to do everything that I'm supposed to do and do the with you training? And then the training began, and I was like, yeah, this is great. This is absolutely sensational. Sorry, what was your question?
So you actually received your first bit of peer support within the with you training. How did that impact your life, moving forward?
Yeah, like the first thing is I realized that, yeah, I'm not alone in this situation, and that whilst people have differing challenges that they're overcoming, the key is that they all overcoming the challenges. And they're in their different stages of their own personal development or rediscovery, but they are still rediscovering and redeveloping themselves. They are stronger because of the situation and the challenges that they faced, not weakened because of them.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was the first thing that became apparent. It was just intriguing to hear the different stories of how people had felt the impact of trauma but didn't let trauma beat them, and were giving back to their organizations, giving back to their trusts, to people who were in similar challenges or had even different challenges, but were motivating them to say, it is possible, it can be done, take things slowly at your pace, use the support that's around you because it is there and we all care, we're all listening. That was impactful for me. So that's why I say it was a game changer, because first of all, I didn't know what peer support was or that it existed. And then all of a sudden I became very aware that peer support is an integral part of the support, the support conversation, the support world. Yeah, I'm for one thankful for it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I used this the other day speaking with somebody. It's so liberating, isn't it? And so validating to meet people who, like you say, who've had awful traumatic experiences, but who've come through it. And that is a key part, isn't it? So moving on then to when you kind of started providing peer support to others, can you describe a memorable experience where perhaps you felt that you made a significant impact on other people or somebody else through peer support?
Absolutely. So when I started it, when I started peer support work, like I said, I didn't really understand how to do it. Through With You, I learned a little bit more through my own applied learning. But then I was given my first case, right? And I was like, okay, well, being a recruitment consultant, I know how to form a CV. I know how to form an introduction. I know how to write a covering letter and inspire people to do that. That's fine. But the first person that I met was really eager to find work, but really confused about what she would do, what she could do. Really confused about how to apply for work, really confused about a CV. And through the first maybe 2 or 3 sessions with her, she just got it. And it was beautiful to see the emergence of this person from having complex needs, not really being able to describe or explain things about herself, really quite introvert, very camera shy, to suddenly have an interview with a high street retailer and do well and flourish.
Oh, wonderful.
It was just like a peacock showing its feathers or an eagle spreading its wings. It was really, really emotional and raw and real, that moment. And it was beautiful. Just seeing the impact of what a little bit of knowledge and a lot of empathy can achieve was sensational. And instantly I was like, yeah, I know, this is the job. It gave me a euphoric feeling which can only be replicated the more times you do it and more people you have the opportunity to speak to and kind of be able to realize their dreams and make their dreams into a reality. Yeah, it was sensational. It was absolutely sensational.
Because that's the thing with peer support, isn't it? I think fundamentally it comes down to, we want people to be the best that they can be. And if every human being was given the opportunity to be the best that they can be in whatever sphere they're in, then the world would be such a beautiful place, wouldn't it? So I've got two more questions, Byron, and I ask these to everybody because I think they're just great questions. And the first one is, who is your greatest inspiration, or who has been your greatest inspiration?
Probably Nelson Mandela. I will struggle to think about someone who has had such diversity and overcome such dramatic circumstances to achieve a oneness of being able to bring a divided country together. I'm struggling to think of another person in history who has achieved that. Probably only Martin Luther King comes close to that, but then he did it over a longer, extended period of time. So I'd probably say Nelson. Yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps. Love it. And the final one is, what is your greatest achievement?
My greatest achievement would be probably going to Dubai in the first instance. It was, I didn't really know what to expect. And it was a case of, yeah, okay, if I don't like it in a year, I can come back. But actually stepping on that plane, saying goodbye to my family, going into the unknown and being able to do that was an achievement, because out of that came my wonderful relationship with my wife, my two beautiful kids. So I would say the start of that great achievement would have been stepping off that plane and being in Dubai.
Wow. Who kind of, I guess, made you kind of who you are today, and in the way you've dealt with everything that's happened with that.
Absolutely. I think that if I wasn't married to my wife and I wasn't in a loving relationship, I perhaps couldn't fathom going through this ordeal without her. Yeah. She's taught me something about myself that I didn't know. And then peer support taught me something about myself that I didn't know.
Wow. You are an absolute inspiration, Byron. I've got shining light written down here because you are. And I think you're just such an incredible example of the power of peer support and the power of the human spirit. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing so much with me today. I really, really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best going forward.
Thank you so much, Kat. And like I said, it's been great spending time and sharing time with you. Let's do it again.